Mesdames, Messieurs,
Ladies, gentlemen, you're most welcome to this Climate Day here at the marvelous Shella Necropolis site. After Paris, Stockholm, and New York, now it is Rabat's turn to host this fourth edition under the title For a Sustainable Electrification for the Energy Transition Climate Challenges that are today at the very heart of the concerns of the states in an economic and geopolitical context which is more than uncertain. Facing the challenges of reducing by 1.5 degrees the global temperature, it is urgent to accelerate the transition and the implementation of the strategies pertaining to carbon neutrality. One of the MDGs is about ensuring the population have sustainable human development, even if access to electricity still continues to curb the development of some parts of the world, and we know, of course, Africa. Facing such a situation, Morocco wants to be a regional locomotive and champion between the different states of the African continent in the field of sustainable development. This regional integration promotes African cooperation and makes it possible to create a leverage effect of industries for a greater continental and more inclusive economy of Africa. Morocco has fitted itself with several national strategies with the objective of having 20% of energy savings and more than 50% of the share of renewable energies in the electric mixed installed total capacity by 2030. In this overall environment, Nexans, for the last 120 years, being a pivotal player in improving the future, knowing that 40% of the global CO2 emissions are hailing from the energy sector. Thanks to these solutions and thanks to these services, Nexans has become one of the most important engines of the global transition. We will be having a more connected energy future and one which is more resilient. We're going to talk about this and more during this afternoon sessions, and I would like you and also to watch with me this video animation. I'll see you later. Now, signs of climate change are all around us, and we need to act here and now. Now, facing such a situation, it is high time we made a choice for future generation. As a private and public actor, we do have the responsibility, and we have a role to play. The Earth is ripe for renewable energies, and Africa certainly must avail thereof thanks to its natural resources that are abundant, a source of clean energy that can allow us to have a sustainable future. Several African countries are already committed onto this new path through the deployment of large-scale energy projects, renewable energy projects in Morocco. The Noor solar complex, spanning more than 3,000 hectares, is a reference. A series of Warzazat-based solar panel taps into the solar energy to produce 580 megawatt. This ambitious project aims to reduce the greenhouse gas effects and provide a reliable and sound energy. A PVP of 30 megawatt in Banga in Niger has been commissioned by the Niger Electrification company, Nigelec, comprised of 55,000 solar panels. This plant is the most important solar energy infrastructure ever to be achieved in the country. This project made it possible to increase the national generation, to reduce the cost of production or generation of electrical energy, and to also foster the area of the river Niger. Malawi has been banking for many years on the solar energy to reach a sufficient energy generation rate by 2030. The country has commissioned Salimasola and Galomoti projects by increasing by 80 megawatt the renewable energies. These plants aim to support Malawi's transitions towards a clean energy and to support the future economic development of the country. Côte d'Ivoire is also committed to making universal access to electricity a reality.
Comme sur l'ensemble du territoire national, le pays consent d'importantes
Now, the country has undertaken a lot of investments in the electrification, a commitment, of course, made with the Nexans Foundation in Côte d'Ivoire that made it possible to electrify the healthcare centers in the north of the country to the benefit of more than 60,000 beneficiaries. But Africa is not limited to these projects. The whole continent has embarked on a transition towards renewable energy. Several African countries have understood the importance of diversifying. Interpreter is leaving you with the subtitles.
Tels que le soleil, le vent et l'eau. Des efforts qui sont non seulement bénéfiques à l'environnement, mais permettent également de créer des emplois locaux, d'améliorer l'accès à l'énergie pour les communautés rurales et de stimuler le développement économique. Malgré tous les efforts et les projets déployés, l'Afrique demeure néanmoins le continent le moins électrifié et c'est près de 600 millions de personnes qui n'ont pas accès à l'électricité. Le temps presse. Réussir l'électrification durable est en effet un enjeu majeur pour notre région. Ensemble, nous pouvons agir collectivement, rapidement et montrer l'exemple. À travers la transition énergétique, l'Afrique et le reste du monde peuvent construire un avenir où la préservation de notre planète est une priorité absolue. Rejoignez le mouvement dès aujourd'hui et ensemble, faisons une différence pour demain.
Électrifier.
Electrify the future. This is the motto of Nexus. All of these values, challenges are really part and parcel of this group, Nexans. I would like you to put your heads together to Mr. Christopher Guérin, the CEO of Nexans.
Bonjour à toutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Minister of the Energy Transition and Sustainable Development, Minister of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Mazur, Mrs. the Director, Mrs. Amadou of Energy and Water, Niger, Mr. Minister of Energy and Malawi, Mr. Matala, Excellencies Ambassadors, Mr. Dewali of Rabat, Mr. Yacobi, thank you for hosting us in this wonderful, stupendous monument. Mr. Ben Shaboun, Director General of the Mohammed VI Investment Fund, Mr. Haman, Director General of ONE, Mr. Faddal, the President Director General of Mazen, Mr. Shakib Alj, the President of the Moroccan Employers Association, Mr. President of Regions, dear elected representatives, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone, thank you for attending today. Thank you for hosting us this warmly, and thank you for your commitment for the furtherance of the planet. Thank you for the confidence you are honoring us with, and personally, also for your very attendance today with us for this Climate Day celebration. I still recollect only 1 year ago in this event was expected, but hundreds of families were left to their own after having seen their houses and flats fall in Marrakesh. Well, allow me here to say how much we think of these innocent lives and the fatalities that are still remembered today. Well, our commitment was proven right in the following hours after the earthquake. Nexans has supported the families, and this has allowed us, of course, to work together because it is in distress that we can be more visible and make sure, reassure that we will always be a corporate social responsibility company. So we are also very proud and very happy today to hold the very first Climate Day of Nexans on the African continent. Now, with this event, we hope together to really leave an indelible mark in the spirits and show how much Morocco is at the center of structural and far-reaching projects in the field of sustainable development here, as well as in the African continent, to be able to meet with the SDGs, UN SDGs, strategies. Our country intends to become a major partner with the European partner. Your roadmap is clear in terms of renewables for decarbonization. Your very presence of each and every one of you, of course, honors us and proves that this partnership is not time-bound, but it is something that is steeped in the future, and this is something that we have started since 1947. More than 77 years now, Morocco and Nexans have been building services and solutions geared to sustainably electrify the country, and by widening our common ambition to include all of Africa. Of course, it has been in constant progression. I'm talking about our commitment. Your commitment is not limited to investments. It is much more deeper. This is a territorial engagement, a commitment which is one to produce locally, to strengthen this in a long-term effort, which consequently makes it possible to increase and heighten the commitment and the use of local teams of Nexans, and also limit and reduce our carbon footprint. So this is the EEE model. This is a model that we use throughout our group, and that showcases that performance and accountability are possible when we associate the economic requirements and the environmental requirements and the social commitment of the staff or the human resources. There is another path to hyper-growth, even degrowth. Frugality has become for us an important engine of profitability. In 5 years, we have been able to bring our profitability twofold, but at the same time, thus reducing by 37% in a 5 years lifetime our carbon footprint, and have increased very dramatically the profitability of our group. This is applied also in our sites the world over. And as I see it, our teams in Morocco are a model of what Nexus must become. We are being inhabited by a common ambition to turn Morocco into an example of the African genius to the benefits and the service of the planet. And today, thanks to your support and your determination and resolve, we are going to strengthen even more the bonds that unite us. We will give new and showcase new proofs of our commitments for Nexans. I'm saying it out loud, our satisfaction of organizing a climate day here in Rabat today that is now going for us to become an annual venue that must be reckoned with. We've started in 2019. The first climate day was held in Paris that addressed several main challenges of sustainable electrification, and not promote Nexans commercially, but really talk about this challenge. We've organized it last year in Stockholm, and we've talked about sustainable infrastructures related question, and we've also held it 2 years ago in New York, and where we zeroed in on the questions of sea-based wind park, and we were happy to announce that New York City and Manhattan by 2030 will be fully fueled by green energy, and would be also served through Nexans labeled cables. Every climate day will be the subject of debate, because we are willing to understand through a constructive debate from the global companies, influencers, regulators, operators, and of course learn from this PPP convergence, together acting in order to turn climatic vision into a reality of climate sustainable electrification. Nexans is born with Tesla, Westinghouse, and Edison, dating back to 130 years for cables to convey electricity. It is the onus on us is therefore to be open and to work collaboratively, because only together we will be stronger. All of the members of the government, all our prestigious speakers are holding today in their hands a part of the solution. I would like to thank them vividly for being with us here today, to participate actively in this sustainable system that we all feed. All nations today are awakening on the social change. We are only at the beginning of a electrification revolution that would call on us to have to manage or to overcome two challenges: accelerate the passage of fossil fuels to the renewables, having 200 gigawatts thanks to offshore parks between now and 30, and also 1 gigawatt is tantamount to a nuclear reactor. But mind you, at the same time, AI is now catching up on us and gaining momentum the world over, and it's going to require 110 gigawatt of electricity consumption, which was not in the menu, or on the menu of the electrification strategy of the country, albeit Nexans will draw pride from working with Africa on decarbonate. I don't want to have a two-speed decarbonation. Nexans is not going to create a new fracture between territories in which we do our invest, and we will do whatever we can to offer decarbonated energy to all African countries. We have to serve the world at the same rate and rhythm. We need to prove innovative. The electric network is the very spine and the backbone of the economy of the country. In Morocco, you have had tremendous leap and quantum leap, and I'm weighing my words. Access to the network is modern. Your network is modern, widely digitalized. Electricity is transported by millions of cables. When infrastructure breaks down, it doesn't mean only loss of electricity. It is also the life stops, and we don't have any more access to telecommunications. No heating and ventilation, HVAC stops because of the older age of infrastructures associated to the intensity of climate-rich East country must massively invest, hence modernizing and rolling out its electric infrastructure. Or build them from afresh to avoid this fracture. The challenge is not to renew only the electric channel, but to make it resilient to climate change, to the very strong temperatures and to the floods and fires, to each natural disaster that can disrupt it. Now, the genuine question at the end of the day is, we know where to go, but the real question lies in, are we going at the appropriate speed? There is no limit. The sky's the limit for us. We have the human resources, the machine, the technology, the knowledge, the know-how, and maybe the AI that would allow us to go even further. And all we need is the convergence of cooperation, will-based cooperation of the government, both public as well as the public and private, to accelerate the deployment of the electric network, but also talents. In this respect, the quality of the education and extraordinary expertise of Mohammed VI Polytechnics University at the Central School of Casablanca and the City of Innovation of Satat, and all of the Engineers School of Morocco, allowing technicians, high caliber specialists and technicians are going to be doubtless for us a stake that would allow us Nexans to be much more to be able to use the Moroccan excellence. We have an ecosystem and a holistic approach that we wish, and that will become that will be showcased. And it's self-telling. Nexans has participated to more than 70% of electrician in Morocco, and 40% of the services in Morocco are being also used for the benefit of African countries. This co-leadership dynamic is going to gain momentum through a design lab opening Casablanca task with designing what would the tomorrow's electric network be. But the innovation is not only limited to the network, it is everywhere. It is also found in the systems with the facilitation of turnkey projects that are going to be also controlled from afar to resist the specific conditions of use from different countries. Over and above Morocco, the sustainable electric channel has its sources. By way of example, Nexans has finalized Nexans Morocco has completed the electrification of 64 villages in Côte d'Ivoire and is accompanying new electrification projects in Benin and Senegal for a electrification potential of in excess of 500 households. I am fully convinced that Morocco has a pivotal role to play for sustainable electrification of the country. You are the spearhead. You are the leader of energy, avant-garde and ambitious. And I'm not really throwing flowers at you. This is the reality.
Morocco
has become the fourth country in terms of energy performance, 18% of green energy with a goal of 25% by 2030. For those in this arena, it is the first time that we use renewables in this range of electrical power. Decarbonized energy must become a standard, and its adoption is a key factor in its achievement. You have also decided to mitigate inflation impacts through decarbonation. So all that you have put in place will give you a key role in electrification in Africa. You'll be aware why Morocco has become a hub for us to host this Climate Day. This is the opportunity for us to bring together experts and authorities, all those who will lay the foundations for electrification, sustainable electrification in Africa are here. Global electrification must be universal, and Nexans and Morocco have demonstrated their expertise to develop sustainable solutions, and this as part of a great friendship and a confidence in our common future. And with this, I declare open the Climate Day here in Rabat. Thank you, Christopher. Please stay with us because we will be needing you a bit later on. We felt the commitment of Nexans Group through your words, your ambition, all the projects. And there is someone at the forefront of these projects under the informed leadership of His Majesty, and I mean Dr. Leila Ben Ali, Ms. Minister.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much. Excellencies, Minister, dear ministers from our African partners, Niger, Malawi, Mr. Nexans CEO, Mr. President of the Entrepreneurs Organization, Mr. President of the M6 Investment Fund, Mr. President of Mazen, and Ms. Director General of the Nexans Morocco. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, general managers, general secretaries, dear participants. At the outset, I would like to thank Nexans for fulfilling a promise you have made earlier. You made last year. You chose Morocco as your fourth destination for the Climate Day, this yearly event, as was reminded by our national star, Wadia Dada. It was first held in Paris, then in Stockholm, then in New York. And this is a milestone to mobilize players and to share experiences and specific solutions. And for the first time in this gorgeous place of Shilla in Rabat, I think we can all be satisfied. The only caveat I would share with you, and here I speak as a Minister for Sustainable Development, we are the 26th September 2024. It's 25 degrees with 85% humidity. So we are starting to see throughout the year the impact of climate change. Every now and then there are rare climate events, floods, 2 weeks ago in Morocco, in Europe as well. But all those events demonstrate and remind us how complex the new challenges we face in this century, alongside other healthcare challenges, pandemics, geopolitics. There are currently several wars taking place over the world, and they have an impact on inflation, on price volatility, and so on. So without starting on a negative note, and I think we're all gathered here because we share the same goals. we have the same convictions. Why Africa? In this beautiful video presented by Nexans, you reminded of the 600 million people who lack access to modern energy or any form of energy in Africa. Our Moroccan skills, and we see that when we work with our African partners, rural electrification, although this has been a success in Morocco, we reached 99% electrification in Morocco, but we realize that the last mile is the most difficult, the most expensive to achieve. But here I will not repeat the same story over and over again. When we hear of Africa in international fora, that it's the least electrified continent, of course there is a gap, there is an emergency. But I would like to go back to the reasons why we chose Africa. We need to invest between 130 and 170 billion dollars in order to develop infrastructure in Africa, and especially energy infrastructure. There's a $100 billion gap each year. And today, Africa, for the world, and especially for Europe, is the last stock of skills if we are to continue growing in this century. So if access to energy is not enough in Africa, the economic survival of the world, I think, is a very strong case that needs to be made. And this is why we insist on the fact that, and you heard African leaders in international fora, geopolitics conferences, etc., who say that Africa no longer needs help, but rather needs investments. This is why we need to develop durable, resilient business models to have bankable projects. And we heard that during Nexans' presentation. And we need to duplicate the 2.0 Moroccan experience in sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. We need to bring these new bankable project models, and hence the importance of being supported by financial and industrial partners that share the same long-term vision for Africa, for Europe, for the world, such as Nexans does, and for us to head in the right direction. Isn't that so, dear Christopher? I think you wrote a great book on this very topic. Minister of Industry and Trade will try, I think, will attempt to negotiate something in that regard. We're all gathered here in this room, and we're all aware that energy transition is a tall order. It's very complex, and this is why I call on people who have a dogma or an ideology to be more humble, because things change, technologies change, and you've seen that during today's exhibition. There are also inflationary and real social risks in this transition, especially if the transition is not fair. And we've seen unfair transition models. And this is why our commitment towards energy transition encompasses cost reduction while guaranteeing energy safety. As a Saudi Minister of Energy, and we witnessed this in Morocco on many occasions, especially over the past 3 years, when we had to create separate spaces between energy security and our energy development and social needs. Why Morocco? I will not repeat the well-worn expressions, Morocco being the only country connected to Europe from an energy standpoint in both directions. We need to remain bi-directional, but because Morocco is one of the most connected countries in the world and the only viable corridor between Europe and the Mediterranean basin, if we are to unlock this productivity potential in Africa. Our energy transition, which was started in 2009, we have more than 15 years of experience as part of the vision formed by His Majesty the King, may God assist him, is one of our sustainable development goals and decarbonization goals for our country and for our neighbors. I mentioned green certificates. We adopted a decree in that regard 2 weeks ago. So Morocco is a connecting country. It's part of a group of 5 countries in the world which are emerging as hubs that reconfigurate value chains in the world. And given the great upheavals, the great developments, the great restructurings in the industry, in key sectors, we have ports at Tangemed, which are very large, and those companies in our gas endeavors know this. We also have the Dakhla Atlantic Airport. We also have great roads and railways. So Morocco is a logistical hub between Africa and Europe, but we want Morocco to be a viable energy corridor towards Europe. And here I'm thinking of green molecules. The second message is acceleration. Why do we always mention acceleration? The acceleration of investments, the reduction of process times, simplification of procedures, and so on, because we have no other choice. This acceleration is a precondition for our strategic vision. In our infrastructure planning, we have planned for the next 5 years, not only because we are hosting the World Cup in 2030, but to have our business and usual power generation. And we plan more than 10 gigawatt by 2029 in our investment plan, with 100 billion dirham investments. And this does not take into account desalination projects, World Cup projects, and hydrogen projects. All this is just business as usual. So our investment rhythm will grow, will develop renewables, it will rise fivefold. We need to reach 1,400 gigawatt of renewables each year, and until 2022 we were at 160 gigawatts, including large projects such as Ouarzazate, Noor in Ouarzazate. So we've already started, and now we have accelerated by adopting texts and laws and decrees. The strengthening of storage systems, more than 1.2 gigawatt of storage by batteries in our investment plan. This has not been approved yet, but this will probably be increased. Development of import infrastructures, but also transport and storage infrastructure to support electricity production. This was added as well in our investment plan. For those of you who were at the 31st of May workshop on gas and gas infrastructure, you'll be aware why we wanted to include gas swiftly and sustainably in this mix. And the new feature is the increase of our grid, the strengthening of our investments to bolster our electrical grid to the tune of 30 billion dirhams. And here I'm looking at the president of our Mohammed VI fund. So this is for 2024 to 2029. So this is just business as usual. So a 3-4-fold increase. Third message, innovation and reforms. The projects that we carried out so far were made possible because of the establishment of a legislative and regulatory framework which is agile. Those who have been monitoring this topic know that we had a trade-off in our codes and laws to accelerate current decrees. So we chose to accelerate existing decrees. And this was to be in line with our development orientations, the strengthening of transparency, the improvement of business climate. When it comes to transparency, I would like to share with you that we will hold for the north-south line, Dakhla Casablanca, we'll hold a side event on the margin of the PowerX event. So we'll do just as we did for the gas infrastructure. We will invite the domestic and international private sector, investment funds, our institutional and financial partners, in order to rethink the restructuring of this line and accelerate this development, because this is the backbone of our grid, the backbone of Morocco as a corridor of green energies between Africa and Europe. You'll be aware that innovation and human capital are important for us, and especially for me. And here I am happy to see the handing out of Nexans Climate prizes. This is in line with our human capital goals. Christopher mentioned the quality of engineers in Morocco, and we are proud to bring this human capital to another level to accompany this energy transition. And here I wish to congratulate this year's laureates, and I wish them every success in their projects. When it comes to reforms, human capital is key to accompany these reforms. As you know, this allows us to encourage decentralized production and to afford economic players to benefit from low carbon energy, but of course a competitive energy, be it produced or transported energy. I will not mention all the laws that we amended, the 4921, for example, and I'm happy to see the signature of new conventions between Nexans and some Moroccan and foreign operators for the decarbonization of Nexans plants in Morocco. So all these reforms are bearing fruit. For the first time in Morocco, we have adopted the right of origin certificates to guarantee the origin of power generation in order to monitor energy production. So administrations are compelled to deliver those certificates to monitor gigawatts produced throughout the life cycle of the electricity. So this without any inflation risks. And for exporting industrial players, but also other players, service providers, this will allow them to value their products and have storage facilities, but especially to bolster the flexibility of the national electrical grid. Our national regulator is with us today, and here I wish to congratulate him for issuing the transport capacities for the first time. This was very refreshing for the operators of the industry. And I wish to remind you that several aspects have been taken into account when we developed these texts over the past 2 years, especially water desalination. This is a national emergency, but also green hydrogen projects. We introduced a few key elements in these projects. In our regulatory text, we will authorize developers to build direct lines, but also achieve storage facilities. For the first time, we introduced the concept of a storage service to allow for a greater flexibility of our grid. But for auto producers, I know there have been many discussions on the 10% threshold that we raised to 20% with the possibility, and this is in our decrees, with the possibility to raise this threshold in some specific cases, especially in desalination projects, for a 1-year period. So once you produced your energy for a year, you can ask for this threshold to be raised to more than 20% if this is compelling for you. I will not delve into the details, so I will conclude these remarks by saying that the increase of renewable electricity, the multiplication of energy efficiency services. We adopted a decree 2 weeks ago in that regard. The multiplication of storage services, the circular economy, the electrification of final usage. All these are the main decarbonization levers. But above all, this means we will be able to tap into job creation levers. So this is why the acceleration of energy transition requires our mobilization, green investments, and this requires an in-depth reflection on the role of banks, but also on the role of partnerships, PPPs, which will play a much more ambitious role alongside the traditional way of structuring projects. And this not only in Morocco, but also in the rest of Africa. And here I invite our PPP partners to delve into the transforming of our grids to make them smarter. In the exhibition, there is a part devoted to digitization, and this raises security or data access issues. But I'm convinced that Morocco is capable of offering the world a balanced model, a balance between safety, sustainability, and competitiveness, because our goal, our common goal, is to reduce the cost of green electricity. And to conclude, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to the organizers. I'm convinced that our fruitful discussions will lead to specific solutions, and we'll continue our discussions in 2 weeks during the PowerX conference. Thank you so much, Ms. Ben Ali, Minister of Energy Transition and Sustainable Development. Please stay with us, if you will. We'll continue on from this momentum you launched with this very exhaustive presentation, the challenges awaiting Morocco and the continent in terms of energy transition and environment protection for a greener electricity but this requires industrial projects. This requires safety, new ideas. And to discuss this, please welcome Mr. Riyad Mazrou, Minister of the Industry and Trade. I think my speech will last a bit longer than that of my colleague, so please be patient. But because she is very, very smart, because she has a way with words, here we're speaking to the audience, so I will try to have a short contribution to discuss the environment, the economy, and our commitment. So please give a round of applause to our friend Christopher. With the strategic vision of our Minister for Energy Transition and Sustainable Development. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm here to discuss practical matters. There are 600 million people awaiting electrification in Africa, and there are as many jobs to create. So the goal is simple. There is no development without electricity. There are no jobs without electricity. When we look into our journey throughout history, we mentioned this with Mr. Benhima, which was formerly heading this sector, with interconnections, rural electrification, building plants without PPPs. We were on our own. So it was very complex to carry out all these efforts. We were at the period of our history where we faced structural investments. We needed to convince international institutions, and some of our colleagues on our continent are facing the same circumstances. And sometimes we tend to think, okay, let's tackle the most urgent matters. Let's placate the population because we need money to solve their problems. And we're experiencing this today. When we built the first motorway in Morocco about 30 years ago, and up until now, people would tell us, why an LGV line? You need hospitals, you need schools. Why do you build a port? Because people are still going hungry. We need a better education. Why do you continue building plants? Why solar plants? It's pointless. And yet, this is the sole and only unconditional vector and vehicle for development. It's as simple as this. Without energy, if we do not mobilize energy, we stand no chance of developing, and we remain trapped in the middle income category, and we do not make progress. So we made this choice, this bold choice. We were criticized. We had to solve very complex equations and to plug gaps. But we have this grid. We have the electrons. We're on our way. We have this positioning. And we are visible. We're on the map. And we have an industrial development which would not have been possible without electrons. And so today, the main issue is to know, given this very tense and pressing world, when short term takes over the long and medium term as a developing country, how do we go about making the right choices and remaining true to these choices in the long term.
So the donors tell us we need to separate the generation, the production from transport and distribution, and who's the best regulations-wise, and who's developed this dependency, and who's created the best PPP. And when you would be super transparent, we would be giving you, of course, a petty amount for 30 kilowatt. And after that, huh? How about that? I know they are kind with us, maybe less with others. Anyway, and we, therefore, are finding ourselves in a situation where we have to really say good for everything. We're in situations where nothing is clear. We know that our final users do not have any possibility to mobilize funds. We know that the business model will not really work very well in this kind of snafu situation, but we have to do it. We have no choice. And the challenge today in this partnership, in this very work, is to see to it that, and I'm going to use the three keywords of my friend Christopher. First, the environment is not just for the beauty of it. We're Africans. Our print is not extraordinary. Well, we know we don't want fractures, but we are in survival, not at the level of environmental fracture. It's an opportunity. It's an occasion to be tapped into. Really, we have to really seize it. That would allow us to deconcentrate, to produce at smaller scale, to have interconnections, to use our intelligence, to work, to reduce, of course, the span in terms of investment, and to really flesh out the investment. This is where we exactly together we need to work to set up projects, to encourage our companies, to do our PPPs, and this is where we need, of course, to mobilize, of course, our actions. There are extraordinary opportunities, not only on the last mile, even in small plants, even in larger plants, there are extraordinary opportunities. Today we are at a threshold of our development in Morocco, industrially speaking, where we don't have energy, the energy needed. We don't have the possibility to invest in the needed energy for the industrial project. We have reached a scale where industrial projects come and tell us, well, I need 20% of your capacity, installed capacity. You imagine that? Someone who comes and tells you have 11 gigawatts I've installed, I need 2 or 3 gigawatts to have my plant or factory, yeah? Oh, I need 32 million cubic meters of water. This is the consumption of a city, and we are still at this very level. So we can do it only by coupling the industrial project, coupling it with an energy project, and that renewable energies makes it possible to do, provided insofar as we release the energies. We are not very controlling regulators. If we start, of course, controlling and using this electron as a free commodity between the buyer and the transporter and the producer, and this is the whole challenge, because we have an insoluble equation legacy. We have this legacy, and we need to solve it. And Mrs. Ben-Ali is earnestly trying to solve in our country, Morocco. Mr. Riyad Mazur, thank you very much for the presentation. Very, very down to earth and very hands-on, as you have said. Yeah, true. We've talked about Morocco, its positioning, its achievements. Morocco which is entrenched in Africa, and this is the first continental experience through what is being done in Malawi. And in this respect, we're going to have Mr. Lim, the Minister of Energy of Malawi, Mr. Ibrahim Matola.
Welcome, sir, with us. The floor is yours.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي عملي واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. It is very difficult to speak after the able speakers. However, I'll try to represent my country, Malawi. But before that, I would like to ask the audience to greet the one who is on your left and the one who is on your right and say, we can together make it. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It is a great honor to stand before you today at this esteemed gathering, the 4th edition of the Climate Day international event. Firstly, I want to express my deep grief for the tragic event that befell the people of Morocco last year around this very much month of September. And due to the auspices of Nexans, I was invited, and that is the day I arrived in the country when this tragedy took place. I saw what the chairman has said, the brotherhood and social responsibility from Nexans. Unity in grief, in happiness, not only on business, but also it is a calling from God. Whoever is doing the energy issues, he should or she should know that this is a calling from God. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. All speakers have spoken that you cannot talk about health without energy. You cannot talk about smart agriculture without energy. You cannot talk about education without energy. Women and girls are spending nights in Africa looking for fuel wood, inhaling the smoke, which is also causing hazardous to the pulmonary diseases. Time has come that the 600 million people in Africa who are lacking access to electricity, affordable, reliable, sustainable electricity. It is our duty to take this opportunity and save the humanity. Secondly, my sincere appreciation goes to the host for covering this important forum under the theme of sustainable electrification for the energy transition, a major opportunity for Africa. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, indeed, this is a great opportunity for African countries in their quest for achieving Sustainable Development Goal number 7. Our continent, Africa, is blessed with enormous renewable resources, whether through sunlight, wind, hydro, or geothermal power. The Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمُ اللَّيْلَ سَرْمَدًا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ مَنْ إِلَهٌ يَأْتِيكُمْ بِضِيَاءٍ فَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. The opportunities are there. The sun will rise and set. There's no boundary. There's no interruption in the supply chain. But other sources of energy have got sanctions in the supply chain. But this is controlled by the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it open, that the sun will rise until the day of judgment. It is up to us to utilize it. We have the new materials for a greater and more sustainable energy future, but it will take bold, innovative action to rerun this potential into reality. Like many other African counterparts, Malawi has faced significant energy challenges over the years. Access to electricity remains low, with only about 23% of the population having access to electricity. This figure says it all. As an economy, we are very far from achieving our national electrification objectives. All speakers have said it. With the interconnectors, Africa can be the hub of energy trade. I'll set an example about the power pools. Malawi is a land-linked country. In the east, it's bordering with Mozambique. In the west, it's bordering with Zambia. And in the north, it's bordering with Tanzania. So Malawi, for the first time, His Excellency, the State President, Dr. Lazarus Makathi Chakwera, went into negotiation with his counterpart, the President of Mozambique, President Nyusi, so that Malawi can be tapping power from Southern Africa power pool into Malawi. And then Malawi bordering with Tanzania. Tanzania is already in the East African power pool, where they are already connected from Ethiopia, where there's got big Renaissance Dam, almost 6,000 megawatts, into Djibouti, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and then Tanzania. So Malawi and Tanzania, if they are connected in the Eastern African power pool, they can feed into Congo DRC, where the mining industry is so huge, and the demand, the off-takers of this power is in Congo DRC. So Congo DRC with Congo Brazzaville is just River Congo, which is dividing them. So it is the entry point into the Western African power pool. So Gabon, Togo, Mali, Senegal, you're already here in Morocco. The Northern African power pool. So Morocco is already connected between Tanja and Tarif. It's just a few kilometers, about 10 kilometers. There is a submerged cable into Tarif and also vice versa coming to Tanja. Let me thank the leadership of this country, Mohammed VI, for his brilliant idea. In Africa, we can save a lot. Every 1 hour, 10 youth from African countries, they are drowning in the Mediterranean, going into Europe for seeking green pastures. We don't have industries because we don't have power. Medicines are just getting expired because we don't have power to run the refrigerators. Doctors in the rural areas, they are using their cell phone torches in order to operate a woman who is giving life to a child. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. We need to take this very serious. It is not very justice. It is injustice for a child who is learning and studying through the kerosene, and a child who is learning and studying on LD. We need to give our people these natural resources and to utilize them. When we are talking about smart agriculture, and I'm very glad that the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Industry has mentioned it. Value addition. Fruits are being grown. Cocoa is being grown. But it's taken raw into Europe. And the city has been created, Cadbury, making chocolates. And that chocolate, when it comes back to Africa, you and me, we cannot afford it to buy. It's very expensive because we don't have smelters to run those industries. What we need is energy is the enabler. Energy is the driver of the economy. Our commitment to increasing power generation is unmatched. However, for us, it is not just about providing power, it is about how we provide that power, how we generate, distribute, and utilize energy in the ways that safeguard the environment while driving economic growth and human development. Yes, sustainable electrification is the key to bridging the energy access gap and delivering reliable, affordable, and clean energy to millions of Malawians and Africans who still live without it. In Malawi, we are making strides towards this vision. Our national energy policy is aligned with sustainable development goals, and we are actively pursuing projects that diversify our energy mix. The development of additional hydroelectric power stations, such as in Patamanga and Songwe, reflect our commitment to harnessing renewable energy for both national development and also regional integration. I would like to call upon the Nexans, with their vast knowledge and with their vast technology, to enter into the market in the Southern Africa so that together we can achieve eradicating the poverty of energy of the 600 million people. The target was set that by 2030, we would want 300 million people in Africa to be having electricity, and the 2030 is just around the corner as tomorrow. What have we done? These are more powerful projects which we would like to develop, some of which feasibility studies have already been conducted on. These include Colombizo and Fufu hydroelectric power projects. To achieve our electrification ambitions, we recognize that no country can do this alone. Aliyadu wahidu la tusaffiq. One hand cannot clap. We need collaboration, coordination between the utilities, between the ministries, between the governments. Africa is one. When you look at China and India, 40 years ago, we were at par. But because they invested a lot in science and technology innovations, today they look to be big and among the superpowers. But yet, Africa is so rich with the resources. We don't experience winter. I hear here there's a certain city which experience winter because they're closer to Europe. But the rest of Africa, the rain, the rivers, perennial rivers flow and the water is going into the oceans. What we need is to have that technology, how to harvest that water. We must view the energy transition not as a burden, but as an opportunity path towards greater prosperity and resilience. The global shift toward cleaner energy sources present Africa with a unique movement of leapfrog over outdated technologies and become a leader in the green economy. This is not only possible, but essential if we can, and we are, to achieve the African Union's Agenda of 2063 and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The continent is blessed with a climate conducive to renewable energy, from the vast solar potential in the Sahara to the wind-swept coastlines of Southern Africa. We have the natural assets to become leaders in clean energy production. However, harnessing these resources requires investment, technology, innovation, and regional collaboration. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to finish by reinforcing Malawi's commitment to achieving universal access to clean energy as part of the global effort to combat climate change. I thank you very much for taking your time to listen.
Merci.
And thank you very much for the invitation to be part of the Climate Day here in Morocco.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Monsieur Ibrahim Matola, Ministre de l'Énergie.
Mr. Ibrahim Matulabi, Minister of Energy, thank you very much from Malawi. Well, we've heard the open prospects on the basis of the different dynamics that are undertaken by states and governments. Now, the question now is, where are the project owners? Where are the business community? Now, this is a question that Shakib Al-Alj, the president of the Moroccan Employers Association, CGM. Now, you have this question, Mr. Alj. Over to you.
Monsieur le ministre de l'Industrie.
Excellency Minister of Industry of the Kingdom of Morocco, Madam Minister of the Energy Transition, Sustainable Development, Mr. the Minister of Energy of Malawi, Mr. Director General of the Mohammed VI Fund for Investments, Mr. the CEO of Mazen, Mr. Director General of Nexans, ladies and gentlemen. All due protocol being respected. Well, I am happy and delighted to participate in the work of this workshop organized by Nexans, and whom I'd like and commend for the choice of this crucial topic, that of sustainable electricity, not only for our country, but also our continent, but also for the whole planet. The impacts of climate change on our economies are more and more obvious and nefarious. Every day we need to disrupt with our ways of consuming and producing, and this even stronger in Africa, our continent, that, let me recall, of course, pollutes less and is subject to now, therefore, Africa must have greater electrification. In 2024, as has been mentioned in the video, we still are talking about 600 million Africans who do not have access to electricity, and huge expanses still lack electricity network. You all know no social or economic development can be had without and reached without electricity. Ladies and gentlemen, having said this, the challenge of electricity supply that is reliable to to the hundreds of millions of Africans must be done in compliance or in full respect of the environment in view of the resources of clean energy that continent boasts. We're talking about 60% of the best solar resources of the world and an untapped hydraulic potential, which is sevenfold the installed capacity in Europe. All the more reason that these past years, these energies costs have gone down. I'm talking about the wind and solar subsectors in view of the affordability of technology. Sustainable development does offer to Africa an unprecedented opportunity to become the world leader of renewable energies and to build its infrastructures on simpler and newer bases. This will certainly have a positive impact on our economic fabric, thereby boosting our the capacities of our companies to create and generate jobs and to improve the continent's possibilities for improvement. Less than 25 years would be 50% of the population by 2050. Many countries have, just like Kenya, have several geothermal power plants, Ethiopia and its hydroelectric dams, not to mention Morocco with its wind and hydraulic and solar energy that today represent 38% of the installed capacity in our country. Although ambitious, the challenge of electrification in Morocco and in Africa is very reachable. Now, I'll talk about the experience of Morocco in universal access. The rate in the rural area has been brought to fivefold in 27 years, thanks to the PAGER, which is the global rural electrification, which made it possible to go from 18% rate of rural electrification in 1995 to 100% in 2022. It has also allowed our economic fabric and our MSMEs to develop, and this has been the case for 96% of the MSMEs. The number of companies have more than doubled, and their capacities built, and many of which have done a transfer of knowledge and competence that made it possible to support other African countries, Central and Western African countries. The success of large projects just like the rural electrification projects and renewable energies today have turned these companies into African level references. Ladies and gentlemen, Morocco has also since 2009, under the instructions of His Majesty, may God assist him, will-based strategy. This strategy allows us to reach the objective of total electric capacity in renewables of 52% in 2030. The regional integration is also one of the pillars. Electrical interconnections are pivotal in the migration towards a low-carbon energy model. Studies and researchers for the connection of Mauritania and Morocco electrical network will make it possible to finalize the electrical system of West Africa to the European network through the Morocco-Spain connection. Thanks to these strategic possibilities, Morocco will be able to play an important role in the development of regional electricity of West Africa and its integration to the European market. At the CGE and Moroccan Employees Association, we strive to improve the knowledge and the creation of sustainable and structured partnership with sisterly countries of Africa. These are based on monitoring and capacity building. We also have rolled out a whole program for the support of decarbonization, including an important aspect related to the access of such companies to green energies, mostly those with the medium voltage and low voltage. We are working closely with our partners to create the environments, be they regulatory or technical, that would be propitious and to this change. We know, ladies and gentlemen, that the energy transition is much more than a technological or industrial change. It is a vector of social transformation, of economic transformation, a tool to overcome the landlockedness and to foster inclusive development. Sustainable development is not a vision for tomorrow. It's today's reality, that we need to build as of today. Sustainably electrifying Africa means give the continent the keys to its own future and economic prosperity. The Moroccan private sector is ready, willing, and able to support this movement. Thank you for your kind attention.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shakib Hadj, President of the General Confederation of Moroccan Businesses. We'll continue around these economic topics in terms of commitment of business men and women, and we'll continue discussing investments. Please welcome the Director of the Mohammed VI Fund for Investment, Mr. Mohammed Ben Chaboun.
Madame, Messieurs les ministres,
Ministers, Mr. Director General of Nexans, General Managers, dear friends, it's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm very happy to take the floor as part of this Climate Day, which coincides with the Climate Week at the moment in New York. And I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you of this year's motto, "It is time." And indeed, it is time we brought specific solutions to our citizens. So allow me, in these introductory remarks, to share with you what I thought were the key messages of this year from the Climate Week. This global event highlights 5 pillars which will guide our actions in the future. First, and this was recalled by my predecessors, climate justice. It is paramount that energy transition in the world leaves no one behind. The most vulnerable countries and communities are often the least responsible for carbon emissions, and yet they are most affected by climate change impacts. And therefore, we need to act so that this transition is equitable. But also, we need to mention decarbonization acceleration. The shift from fossil fuels must be sped up based on renewables. Technological progress in solar, wind, the electrification of transport are key in order to reach our climate goals. The third message is financing. Climate financing has become a priority. Developed countries have a moral and financial responsibility to support developing countries in their efforts to adapt to climate change impacts. And it is our right to ask a very simple question. Where are the $100 billion pledged during the ratification of the 2021 agreement in Paris? It was planned that $100 billion be devoted each year, and that should have taken into account the requirements of developing countries. And fourth is the necessary adaptation of our energy infrastructure. This was recalled by my predecessors. Electricity demand keeps rising, and this requires the modernizing of our electrical grids and our storage capacities in order to reach and achieve a durable transition. And lastly, cooperation. Cooperation is key because the fight against climate change will not succeed if the public and private sector cooperate. It is key to encourage innovation through robust partnerships between the government and businesses. And here there's a pillar for the Mohammed VI Fund for Investments, and I will get back to this a bit later. Ladies and gentlemen, many countries invest in renewable sources of energy, such as wind and solar. And those are very promising sources of energy, but they require more electricity for them to be integrated in a stable way into our grid. These renewables require an adapted infrastructure and also storage facilities to offset peaks and troughs in production, but also services that could help us to meet demand and rising demand. If the requirements for renewables increases, we need to meet this increase. And this requires more green electricity production, but also to modernize our electrical grids. And this requires gigantic efforts to increase accessibility, bolster storage capacity, ensure the transport of the power produced to the consumption hubs, and facilitate the interconnection between grids. We're also witnessing growing electrification in industries such as artificial intelligence, data centers, which are power guzzlers, but there's also a rise in the use of electric vehicles. These positive developments heap an additional pressure on electrical requirements and needs. In the same way, urban sprawl in Africa makes demand greater, which requires larger and more adapted infrastructure. And to meet this growing demand, and if we take the tech industry, there are examples and experiments carried out by Google and Amazon, which show that by investing in infrastructure fed by green and clean energy, it is possible to combine energy and sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa, as other countries, other continents, is faced with climate change, and this requires us to rethink our approach to energy. Africa has significant human and natural resources, but it's facing a crossroads. We need to take the opportunities before us to afford a sustainable future for our children and grandchildren. Energy transition, especially sustainable electrification, is at the heart of this challenge. It holds the key to solving many of the socio-economic challenges facing our continent. Morocco is a specific example in terms of renewable energy. More than 40% of our installed capacity comes from renewables. Our solar plants, including Noor, are some of the greatest in the world, the largest in the world, and those plants strengthen our energy security and contribute to our development. Morocco is a pioneer. It's a key actor in the production of green hydrogen, with bold projects to develop this source from renewables, thereby strengthening its role on global markets. Ladies and gentlemen, sustainable electrification in Africa remains a large challenge because of the significant infrastructure it requires. The private sector alone cannot bear this weight in the near future. The profitability lead times, which are in the long term, make it necessary to structure these investments. And the solution lies in establishing smart partnerships between the public and private sectors. And these partnerships will help us mobilize significant amounts of money, but also to share risks, to afford a contract framework, a secured one, and to strengthen our tech savviness. Under the guidance of His Majesty the King, Morocco has taken significant steps through the creation of this fund. His Majesty wanted this fund to play a key role in investment promotion and in the strengthening of our economic capacities. With a $15 billion initial fund, our goal is to accelerate the building of infrastructure and to reinforce the role of the private sector in their financing. By stepping in the early phases of projects, the fund ensures projects are viable from a technical, legal, and financial standpoint. And by ensuring this viability is there, it also guarantees the viability of these and the sustainability of these projects for investments. And local partners contribute to the implementation of projects and mobilize the additional financing. A significant part of these financial resources are allocated to sustainable infrastructure and to energy transition. Alongside guaranteeing profitability in the long term, we also focus on sustainability by increasing the rhythm of investment and by developing the scale of investments in order to make our growth more sustainable and inclusive. To conclude, Africa is at a crossroads of its energy history. We have the tools, the technology, and the financial models to achieve this transition. And if we act together by focusing on energy security, on accessibility, and on sustainability, we will not only be able to overcome climate challenges, but also pave the way for a better future and sustainable progress. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please stay with us. We'll also thank Madam Minister. Please give her a round of applause because she has, of course, she has stakes in this topic, but she's otherwise engaged, unfortunately. Thank you so much, Madam Minister. Please stay with us, Minister. Please also give a round of applause to Mr. Mazur. Let's conclude this round with the CEO of Mazen, Mr. Amzian Mufaddal. Good afternoon, everyone, Excellencies. Dear directors, colleagues, Mr. CEO of Nexans, dear partners, ladies and gentlemen. At Mazen, we first wish to thank Nexans and its CEO, Mr. Christopher Guérin, for his invitation. This Climate Day 2024 in Rabat, following on from the previous sessions held in Stockholm, Paris, and New York. This meeting is paramount because it gathers leaders from key public and private institutions of our country, but also from African countries which are committed to sustainable development in a space of brotherly exchange in order to explore solutions to the challenges of climate change. And there will also be opportunities for collaboration. There is no doubt that our continent, Africa, is exposed to the impact of climate change with all types of consequences, droughts, high temperatures, sea level rise with human and economic impacts. In order to meet this challenge, renewables are a realistic solution, but also an adapted one. If we consider how abundant, how mature those technological solutions are with a proven competitiveness. On our part, Mazen, the Moroccan Agency for Sustainable Energies, was tasked with steering the development of renewables in Morocco for the support of green energy production in order to reach an energy mix with at least 52% of electricity from green sources by 2030. Mazen strives to achieve sustainable development according to the best international standards. We contributed to the emergence of a domestic expertise, a high technical knowledge in renewables, in order to further decarbonize industries such as industry, transport. Green hydrogen has also been identified by Morocco as a necessary vehicle in line with His Majesty's orientation. May God assist him. In this regard, Mazen was designated in April 2024 as a focal point in terms of green hydrogen, as a contact point for investors with custom support for investors. We are working with Africa, and since 2014 we signed several partnerships with our African friends to share our expertise and to deliver assistance in the renewable sector. Mazen also cooperates with large international institutions such as the United Nations, the World Bank, and the African Development Bank. And we do this to contribute to the development of renewables by improving the bankability of projects, by creating a conducive environment for renewables on our continent. As His Majesty mentioned during his one of his speeches, and I quote, "The development of green hydrogen will, and our greater connectivity with global markets and the hosting of the World Cup between two continents demonstrate our regional integration vision." End of quote. And I wish you a successful Climate Day. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you so much, Mr. Mufaddal, CEO of Mazen. Please stay with us. Now we will inaugurate PV panels of the Shamsi village, which harbors some of the victims of the last earthquake. Nexans contributed to the electrification of this village in partnership with a local organization. The village will harbor 144 children aged from 1 to 18 in order to help them in their rehabilitation efforts. In this project, there are also efforts in education, infrastructure, but also a social and psychological support. Nexans Morocco gave out cables and materials, and PV panels were subsidized to electrify the village. To do this, please welcome Ms. Selma Alami, General Manager of Nexans Northwest Africa, as well as Touria Jaidi Bourbid, President of the Annecy Association. Please give them a round of applause. We will need your support. Two of the people here will push this buzzer to launch the electrification of this village in a symbolic way. And with us as well, Mr. Jontan, President of the Council of Nexans. Please give him a round of applause.
Ah, ben voilà, c'est Monsieur Guérin qui va le faire.
Or I think Mr. Guérin will substitute him. Please come, Mr. Guérin.
Madame Toulia Jaidi Bouabid, voilà, c'est vous
Ms.
qui allez avoir la lutte.
Jaidi Bouabid, you'll have the responsibility of pushing the buzzer.
Et dans la salle, vous allez faire avec nous
And please join us. Let's count down. 5,
3. Voilà, c'est fait. On applaudit.
Okay, this is done. Please, let's applaud Nexans' commitment in this. Thank you for your presence. Thank you, Madam, for your commitment. And I'm sure you'll want to know more about this village, the faces of the children which are being supported as part of this, of the people accompanying them. Let's have a look.
Youssef Lebil, directeur du Douar Chemsi à Mezmez. Donc le 1er août 2024, le Douar Chemsi à Mezmez a ouvert ses portes pour offrir refuge, espoir et avenir à 144 orphelines et orphelins du terrible tremblement de terre qui a touché la région d'Al Haouz le 8 septembre 2023. Douar Chemsi à Mezmez est bien plus qu'un lieu d'accueil et est un endroit où les enfants retrouvent leurs racines, vu qu'il est construit à proximité de leur famille, tout en préservant et en conservant la culture berbère.
أول حاجة السلام عليكم. الاسم ديالي كنزالة الزان، كنخدم في دوار شمسي مربية. اختاريت نخدم في هذا الفيلاج كون أنني عندي حب الأطفال، يعني كنت أصلا كنتفاعل نخدم كمربية، ولما لا جات هذه الفرصة ديال دوار شمسي اللي هو مشروع نموذجي هنا في أمبليسك. بالنسبة ليا كنت حتى أنا من الضحايا ديال الزلزال، وقلت لما لا أنني نعاون دوك الدراري واخا بأبسط حاجة، يعني نواسيوهم ونحاولوا أنهم نسيو داك الشيء اللي وقع.
السلام عليكم. الاسم يحيى عيد لذيذ، السن 13 سنة، أدرس في ثانية إعدادي. وهنا هاد الفيلاج تعرفت على بزاف ديال الأصدقاء، الصداقة معهم مزيانة حيت كنجمعوا في بيت واحد بحال الخوت، وحنا دابا في هاد الفيلاج خوت. كاين بزاف ديال الأنشطة كنمارسوهم بحال الأكواسيك، المكتبة، كاين حتى المسجد كنمشيو كنصليو. العلاقة ديالي بالمؤطرين اللي كاينين هنا علاقة مزيانة، كيتعامل معنا، نساونا في داكشي اللي طرا مورا الزلزال. مبقيناش كنتفكرو داك النهار ديال الزلزال، دابا ولينا كنعيشو حياة وحدة.
Voilà pour ces enfants qui sont accompagnés.
Those children are supported as part of this association in this village. Let's continue with this competition, the second edition of the Climate Nexans Challenge to encourage climate innovation. It supports the best innovations to face climate change so as to build a sustainable future for all. Let's hand out the prizes. As you know, we couldn't give out the prizes last year, so let's give out both the prizes for both editions. So the second prize will be handed out by Jean Fournier Director of Innovation, Service and Growth at Nexans. Please join us and please give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him the prize that he will be handing out to the winner, Gourdo Lahoussi, for the Serino project. This is the third place for the first edition of the Nexans Climate Challenge. Congratulations, Serino, which is an innovative project for the building of new generation greenhouses. Second prize, please welcome Ibrahim Matola, the Minister of Energy for Malawi. I think His Excellency is outside. Mr. Shakib El, are you with us? I don't think so. So for the second prize of this first edition, the winner is Ranj Emin for the Jodor project. Please welcome, congratulations for this startup project in the agri-tech sector, which aims to democratize agriculture in Africa. Please stay with us. The first prize, I think Christopher Guérin, the CEO of Nexans, should still be with us to hand out the first prize of the first edition. Oh, please, Mr. Jean Mouton. So the trophy for the first prize, the first edition, is for Hafidi Moula Youssef for the Mag Power project. Congratulations for this Mag Power project, whose mission is to produce and commercialize small-scale plants to local communities. Please join us and let's take a picture. Congratulations to the prize winners. Please give them a round of applause again. Congratulations. You can now get back to your seats and kudos again.
On y va pour la deuxième édition.
Let's move on to the second edition. The third prize of the second edition will be handed out by Ms. Khalifa, General Manager of the Renewable Energy Cluster. Welcome. You'll be handing out the third prize of the second edition for Boudia Mohammed for his African Development Engineering Project Procurement Group. Congratulations. The second prize for the second edition. To hand out the prize, please welcome Mr. Tariq Amzian Faddal. I don't think he's with us. Adeline Carton, Training Director for UM6P. Is she with us? Okay, please welcome. You'll be handing out this second prize for the second edition of the Nexans Climate Challenge competition. The winner is El Mahdi Abul Malandal for Deep Leaf. Deep Leaf is a Moroccan startup in digital farming which uses AI to identify more than 600 crops with a 96% accuracy. And to hand out the first prize, please welcome our Minister for Energy of Malawi.
Give the first prize and gift in this challenge. Et Monsieur Christopher Guérin, le CEO.
And Mr. Christopher Guérin, CEO of Nexans. Please give them a round of applause. To hand out the first prize, Farami Said is the winner for the Bloody project, which aims to recycle the waste from palm trees, a natural compost system to reduce waste from irrigation through modern technology. Please congratulate the winner of this first prize.
Voilà pour la photo souvenir.
So for the picture, thank you, and please resume the seats, Mr. Minister. Thank you.
Poursuivre tout de suite. Il y en a qui ont faire une petite photo. Les trois lauréats. De lumière, les gars, si on peut avoir. Voilà, super. C'est bon, c'est fait.
Done. Now we're going to continue with the three panels. The first about sustainable electrification, a pillar necessary to reach the overcoming of the climate change in Africa. No access to electricity curbs the development of some regions, especially in Africa, that has the lowest energy footprint. The rate of electrification is only 42%. The electrification of the continent could unleash a huge economic potential with positive spin-off effects, with sources of energy that makes it possible to respond to and meet with the world electricity request. So much we know how this is an undeniable advantage for the energy sector transformation, climate protection, environment protection. 72% of new generation of electricity capacities were renewable, whereas on about 180,000 megawatts of this new renewables, only 1.1% have been added on or in the African continent. To be with us in this first panel is, under your applause, Mr. Adiel Diletala, Director General of the African Electricity Companies or Consortium, Mr. Sidika Luka, in charge of the energy, mining, water, and digitalization at the ECOWAS, and Mark Grenberg, Nexans Climate Manager or Administrator. Yeah, please be seated. Welcome. Mr. Teller, let me start with you, asking you about this challenge or issue. How do we strike a balance between the challenge related to the greenhouse gas effects and the necessity to electrify the continent? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Dada. I'd like to quickly thank Nexans for this invitation and mostly highlight the fact that we need to talk about this problem under the prism of Africa, not a country. So we are at very, very, very different development levels. This being said, we are also having a three-pronged or three-tier development i.e. electrification and lighting, public lighting. If we don't make the difference between the two, we will not be able to talk about the climate phenomenon. If we, therefore, consider all of the commitments made by the countries, we would have to say polluter payer principle. And currently, and then we would know that Africa is not a big polluter, an alarming situation. But this does not mean that we should not commit on the protection. How do we set up this balance? So we strike that balance because we need to face the three speeds that I've mentioned. Very strong demography, the youth of the population, the present demand, in order, therefore, to meet such demand. We need to go very quick, but we should abstain from doing the same mistakes as the advanced economies. We should not pollute before we want to depollute. This is why the advantage of Africa is to have both of the fossil fuels reserves as well as the renewables. Now, the third level here is that we have all made that mistake whereby we want to develop the energy sector separately from the mining and industrial sector. And as the CEO of Nexans said, Madam Minister, the industry is crucial in the energy development, and hence it is by coupling the industrial development with the meeting of the needs in energy that we could do that. We could do green development. We will be able to meet the needs of the industry, strengthen the transformation, sedentarizing the young population by offering them work and jobs, and by also having more credible operators because they are serving a population that is sustainably active. So, in your eyes, the solution for the sustainability is in the couple industry electrification. And Mr. Siddiqui Duka, you are the commissioner in charge of water digitalization at ECOWAS. Does this hold true also in the rural areas? We may think that is true in the urban area, but in the rural area, what challenges that poses? Microphone, please. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Nexans and ONE for the invitation extended to us. Now, this debate about rural electrification, there are challenges of 44, 55, maybe 44 African countries. Yeah. One of the challenges before us is the means of protection, generation of protection, and transport of energy. We have high costs, all of which leads to a weak access. Even for the figures you have given, Africa is only half of African population has access to electricity. We have huge potentials, untapped, mostly renewables, and even when you remove the hydraulics, everything having to do with solar and wind, it's marginal. Many countries have taken commitments by 2030, even relating to SDGs to reach this or that threshold, but up until now we have not reached important figures. But come back to your question. The rural electrification specificity is that we may say a priori it's not profitable on account of a population or geographies and very scattered territories because we don't have industrial fabric. But when you work on a conurbation or a locality, maybe you're not having the economies of scale to electrify. So it's a public service, electricity, just like water and health. Hence, the states are in a situation where, I mean, the population requires, not demands electricity. So often you would see the ONE or equivalent is a equalization system whereby a part is profitable, another part is not profitable, but when you weigh everything together, the service, the public service, or the utilities can strike a financial balance in view of the, sometimes, as I've said, also there are other problems, structural problems for all projects, because for any project today in our country, we have large rural investment projects, but the question is how can we make these projects bankable, financially viable? And for that, we need to conduct technical feasibility studies from an economic, social aspect also, not to say environmental. And very often this is what we are lacking. Of course, the studies, of course, cost quite a lot because they represent between 5 to 10% of the overall investment project price. We will see what opportunity we can find in rural electrification, even if this problem of profitability is raised. Mark Grunberg, you are climate manager at Nexans. You consider that the sustainable development is an engine of electrification. Now, with what you consider to be a source of differentiation, could you please explain to us more that? It's just a choice that we make. We can look at the sustainable development as a whole set of constraints, operational and regulatory constraints, and do the minimum, try and decarbonate these operations, or we may look in there, look at it as a source of new opportunities and competition differentiation. At Nexans, we have opted for putting sustainable development at the heart of the strategy and to look for other opportunities. By way of example, we have developed a low-carbon cable offering that are essential for smart electrification, because it is vain to produce products that generate and requires a lot of carbon to electrify sustainably. We have developed a low-carbon cable offering, allowing our customers who are building or modernizing distribution networks to reduce the print of such networks, or grids rather. What is interesting in this low-carbon offering is that it creates a new standard for the industry, and the sector has no excuses anymore not to use novel products that are really different than those of the competition. In other words, there is some awareness raising to be done with economic operators, and that would lead to taking into account this. We have to convince customers whereby these products are of good quality, not to say greater quality-wise than the products existing there too, to reduce the footprint of the sector, but also we need, in parallel to that, to convince the legislators and the lawmakers to turn these new technologies into the new standards for these technologies. So in order for those who innovate in the sustainability to be to lose in the equation, while using less performant but mostly less clean product. Sadiq Duka, we were talking about that earlier. As far as the rural electrification, a lot of challenges costs-wise, but despite that, you can see opportunities. Which ones? Yeah. Opportunities there are, because as I said, today all our countries have a big portfolio of rural electrification. There are a lot of reforms that are undertaken, that are ongoing, institutional in nature reforms, whereby the regulatory agency, the national parastatals, the public services, utilities, etc., etc. But we also have reforms on the electricity charter/code, whereby, or also structures new investment charters and codes that attract FDI, all of which is done with the energy generation agencies, associations to attract private investors. With ONE, I know that Morocco has that specificity whereby ONE, O-N-E-E, it is the company itself that has developed all of the design, the strategy for the implementation of rural electrification up until almost 100% of rural electrification. What is difficult for us in other countries, because sub-Saharan Africa, if you ask an electricity company to pay for the costs of the rural electrification on top of the other costs for the production, generation and transport, they will not accept. That will be difficult for them. The state must also concur to such investments. On the other hand, even if when you set up an investment system, for example, the concessions, just like the one that ONE is now doing in Senegal, you will see that in the specifications books or the terms of reference, it goes without saying that the operator will not contribute at the tune of 100%. A sizable chunk would hail from the Senegalese agency for rural electrification or the Senegalese government. How can we mobilize financings in this field? Should we also innovate to be abreast of the challenges? I did not really talk specifically of urban electrification. It is the rural electrification, and this is where the opportunity lies. The mines that we're talking about is in the rural areas, rightly so, because we address the rural population in terms of domestic consumption, that we want that challenge, that we want to raise these challenges. But the opportunity here is that by developing, of course, these manufacturing areas, they will be in the rural areas, and the rural areas, of course, are going to attract investments. Half the population in Africa is living in urban areas. Our system is peri-urban, and half of this population is also young, so at a working age. So you can see the investors, the private sector will be willing to invest when an industrial block can support electrification. This is where this becomes appealing. So I would have to say that all of the electrical sectors of our countries have been developed from mining and mines. Do you have examples? Yeah, success. Yeah, you have heard about the Akosombo in Ghana power station. It's aluminum. Aswan also is aluminum. When you go to meridional Africa and South Africa, would we have existed without mines? No. So it's on and around the industrial and manufacturing development that the population settle there and create consumption, and it's not the other way around. And we wanted, of course, we were willing to see the development of the electrical or rural electrification based on the consumption, which is not the way to go. It is the electrification that would remove Africa from the shackles or from the yoke of this. So do you agree as a manufacturer whereby the solution would hail from the industrial pole that would equip managers and give them the conviction to go and invest in these rural areas that are sometimes landlocked? I think we have to think in terms of industrial subsectors. The paradox of this energy transition of electrification. This transition is extremely minerals intensive, and the temptation is very capital, and it is also energy intensive, and the temptation may be too big to use these abundant minerals resources that are necessary for the energy transition, and to stop just there. The temptation is big. Now then, what I see the best opportunity for the creation of qualified jobs generation, value creation, and GDP, GNP, and development in general. It is in the processing and transformation of these minerals in products that are necessary for the production, generation, and storage of this new generation clean electricity. So I would advocate for a subsidiary-based approach that aims not only to tap into the available resources, mineral, and quite obviously the renewable energy, but also the development of processing industry to produce these functional materials that are very important. Mr. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us at this first panel. Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to continue now, this time around, with the topic of energy transition offering real investment and opportunities in cooperation, South-South cooperation opportunities.
Alors le Maroc est l'un des pays pionniers en
Morocco is a pioneer in Africa in the field of electrification. It's been said again and again, including rural electrifications. 2009, under the high instructions of His Majesty, Morocco has more than 99% rural electrification rate, with the ambition to accelerate this to off-grid, 800 off-grid villages. Morocco ranks fourth in the field of climate change management. The strategy for a decarbonated generation makes it possible to attract foreign investors in the green economy. In light of its experiences and accomplishments in fighting climate change and energy transition through the development of renewables, Morocco is positioned as a regional hub. With us, as part of the second panel, please put your hands together for Mr. Director Ben Yahya, the Moroccan Agency for the Energy Efficiency. Mr. Ahmed Baroudi, Director General of Energy, for Mr. Ali Harti, President of FENELEC, the National Federation of Electricity. Oh, please. Mr. Bardash Ambin is not attending. No, you're here. Yeah, I'm being told, that sometimes it's not true what they tell me. So you're here, all the better. Mr. Bardash, the President of the Electricity Regulatory National Agency. Sorry, Mr. Bardash, we're going to start with you. Yes, on the role of an institution like yours, that is to say, National Electricity Regulatory Authority, in terms of acceleration, we've been talking about it, of the acceleration of the energy transition first. I'd like and thank the organizers for offering us this possibility to participate in this important event and talk with friends here and from brothers from Africa. I'm happy to meet them again. And as has been said, under the high instructions of His Majesty, may Mohammed VI, may God glorify him, I think the energy transition is advancing. A country just like Morocco, with very important investment needs and requirements, the amounts are huge. And I think to succeed in the energy transition, we need to create a propitious, transparent framework, both to national and international operators. To do that, in tariff setting, grid and network access, flexibility, all the more reason that there is a natural monopoly for transport, but also a natural monopoly of regional distribution. So therefore we needed to have a regulatory authority that would guarantee this to be done and allow investors to invest. I was honored to be appointed as the president of this authority. We are an independent authority with a 10-member board of directors and also a board from the Court of Cassation or Quash Court. And for those, in order to have all of the information necessary to work on the electric police, we'll come back to that. But before that, Mr. Mohammed Ben Yahya, Director General of the Moroccan Agency for Energy Efficiency. Mr. Bardash was talking about transparency, the legal framework. Can you tell us what you think about that and how is it necessary to address all of the challenges for the energy transition? First, I would like to thank, as the other colleagues have done that, thank the organizers for inviting me. I represent the Moroccan Agency or Authority for the Energy Efficiency, dedicated as it is to the economy of energy with quantifiable to be reached objectives by 2030, God willing. But I would like to recall maybe or state the obvious. It might seem a truism, but the energy efficiency is about making energy savings with two dimensions. One that is technological, whereby we need to buy facilities and machines that are energetically efficient. That is something we know how to do with the development of the technology, and when such equipment is available, we can buy them. But there is the other dimension, as important, if not a little more complex dimension, which is of socio-cultural nature and behavioral. In some cases, we may have all the machines and equipment available, but the very persons, human resources, operators would be confronted to obstacles or that hinder them to use such machines for societal consideration. This is an important element because we need to cause these players to change their minds and to adhere to the energy savings, and for them, of course, to change their behavior. This is, of course, behavior change is very time-consuming through awareness raising, information, demonstration, etc., of good practices. This is an important aspect. This also leads us to talk about a wider aspect, that is the change of the modes of production and consumption, much more global and macro than energy. All resources must be rationally used and streamlined. Now, coming back to the legal framework you referred to, our country is fortunate to have a legal, legislative, and regulatory framework that is certainly keenly set up and led down. We have already back in 2011 a law that has been promulgated and defined. We have a national definition of energy efficiency in that act that has let down a certain number of principles for the energy efficiency, that has defined the role of the actors, that have provided also for any fines and penalties when such principles are not abided by, and have set up a certain number of technical tools that makes it possible to measure consumption and to define what actions to be undertaken to reduce these energy consumption. Starting therefrom, a certain number of orders and council's decrees have been promulgated. 4 have been enacted on the compulsory energy audits on the equipment's energy efficiency minimum standards, but also on the audit institutions/organization that are going to help the consumers, be they industrial or the tertiary, to identify consumption reduction opportunities. Now the framework is there. Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that if you, Mr. Bardi, allow me. Yeah, time is of the essence. You have seen. But I'll come back to you, Mr. Ben Yahya. Mr. Ahmed Baroudi, SDG for the Energy Investment SEE or SIE under the Ministry of Sustainable Development. In these activities, you are mostly direct in the private sector. How do you address that?
I'd also like to thank the organizers for hosting this event. Thanks for the invitation. I had a company of energy engineering. It was transformed into engineering firm. So it's about engineering services. The company is focused on the implementation of energy efficiency projects. I work in lockstep with Mr. Ben Yahya. So this is why you are sat next to him. Exactly, this was done on purpose. So this is our mission. We implement projects, and we also defined a strategic positioning by leveraging the market, meaning that we support and open the market to the private sector, lifting all the obstacles met by companies to implement energy efficiency and decarbonization contracts through financing measures. So all this is being organized as part of a market openness system. Mr. Al-Harti, President of FENELEC, many initiatives were launched for the private sector in this industrial and electrical ecosystems. You work with other players in terms of legislations and operations. What challenges impacted your ecosystem? Thank you so much for giving me the floor, and kudos to Nexans for all that they've done, and thank you to the organizers. The current ecosystem in Morocco in the solar industry is growing very fast, and the regulations are being adopted. And here I take the opportunity to congratulate all those contributing to making this regulatory environment as efficient as possible, among which Mr. Bardash. We expect things will make progress in medium voltage, I think in the very short term. For us at FENELEC, having a visible regulation in Morocco, but also internationally, will allow our partners, especially our African partners, to view Morocco as a model. Our companies are already operating in an attractive and competitive model, and our African brothers view us as a competitive ecosystem. The goal is to attract profitable investments And the experience of Morocco in electrification gave rise to a very competitive ecosystem. The fact that we make progress very fast will allow us to have a competitive ecosystem, and this will ultimately lead to national champions, which will be rich in terms of experience, not only in Morocco and Africa. The need for renewables is being felt all across the world, and we have capacity to work in Europe and the US as well. We'll see how to accelerate this ecosystem. Mr. Al-Baroudi, how do you go about addressing, as an engineering company, how do you go about cooperating with the private sector and businesses? We made an in-depth analysis of the market to understand the obstacles to energy efficiency contracts, and we identified many curbs, operational curbs. The main ones were access to financing, the level of risks. That level was not acceptable by commercial banks, so we worked with credit institutions. And one of the solutions we identified, which is currently in place, is a new kind of insurance contracts which cover the performance contract risks. And this is operational as we speak, and it perfectly covers risks. This has been confirmed by all banks. We developed credit lines with dedicated banks, the banks that work on decarbonization and energy efficiency. We also developed guarantee lines for the decarbonizing of companies working in industrial areas. This is one of the tools that we developed. We also developed the certification of carbon credits, certificates. So this is important for the monetization of credits, and this is in addition to the savings that we are able to achieve. So a whole model was developed, and we created a club to share this model. The Club of African Super ESCO. The first member and partner of this club is Senegal. We signed an agreement with Senegal, so we'll be working together. We have all the tools, all the models, be it at the project level. We have financial and legal models, all the contracts. When it comes to the obstacles you identified, Mr. Ben Yahya, what are the enduring obstacles? And what solutions were brought to help the private sector in that regard? This ties into what I said at the beginning, what we mean by energy efficiency and the human dimension. And what's important is sobriety. There are many obstacles, technical barriers for energy efficiency to develop, and this is linked to the shortage of data on consumption. This is an important parameter. There is also the technical capacity of players, those consuming energy, facing complex systems. So those are technical curbs. There are also behavioral barriers, socio-cultural barriers linked to resistance to change, the lack of information. People say, for example, okay, let's make savings, but we're not sure we'll get these savings. There are also social values. Take a washing machine, for example. Rather than washing at 40 degrees, people wash at 60 degrees, and the consumption gap lies there. There are many examples of this. And as Mr. Baroudi said, there are financial obstacles, access to financing. Very often, investments needed are massive, and sometimes it takes time to recover your investment, and investors are not reassured. So energy efficiency, not only here in Morocco, but all over the world, is struggling to take off. Transition is based on two levers. First, the development of renewables. This is the first pillar, and an objective was set globally to increase threefold the infrastructure. And the second pillar is energy efficiency, with an objective to increase energy efficiency twofold. So the world knows that energy efficiency is an important lever to be in line with the Paris Agreement, but the mechanisms for it to take off are still in their initial steps. Mr. Harty at Fenelec, what are the levers that will help us accelerate this movement? Thank you for this question. Let's be clear. In Morocco, there are several types of clients, high voltage, medium voltage, and low voltage. For high voltage, things are clear. Clients have a very clear visibility on costs, the costs of renewable energies. On medium tension, it's different because there are still prices awaiting to be set. This is underway. It's not been done yet, but when it's done, it will be a milestone because we have several hundreds of clients in high voltage, tens of thousands in medium voltage, which need to have access to renewables because they need to decarbonize, because they know there is a EU tax at the border, and many of our exports go to Europe. So we need to solve this price dimension. Another subject is storage. Nowadays, it's inconceivable to develop renewables without storage, especially in Africa. And the issue we're facing in storage is the cost of storage. The cost will be profitable only at under $100 per kilowatt hour. And we have a curb in Morocco. Tariffs are 30% on batteries, and this is an impediment. We have solar plants, and some of the plants squander the electricity, and the goal here is to store that energy and to deliver it at a good price. What is the leeway for the National Regulation Authority? You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. There is a law which regulates the generation of electricity, which came into force 3.5 years ago. In this period, we had 18 meetings on the several missions that the regulator is tasked with. But before that, it's important to specify our approach. The first pillar is consultation. Even though we are autonomous, we are not in a separate network. We work with the whole ecosystem. We listen to them. We listen to their constraints. This does not mean that we agree with all their grievances, because interests may converge, but it's our responsibility to make our decisions. The second is to be proactive. There is a mature system, and we need to evolve that system, but we need not be passive. the important thing for investors in high and medium voltage, they are awaiting the transporter code. The RNE published the first technical report. Any investor can download that report on the website, and they can get all the necessary information in terms of technical specifications, all the information they need to abide by. Before, things were a bit complicated, but now investors get the necessary information. So this national code is evolving because technologies are evolving. Our national grid evolves. There are more interconnections. So this is why we are currently launching an improvement study with the whole ecosystem with this network code, and I invite you to download the report on the website. Please conclude. There is also the aspect of the price of access to the grid. Before there were operators setting the prices, but now there is a national authority setting the prices with a very low price for investors. We mentioned storage. Prices are the best lever for storage. There are two components: the price of usage and the price of connection. So this helps people better navigate these parameters. So the storage aspect is very important. Please conclude, because we face the risk of continuing in the dark here. The capacity is very important. In the 4019 law gave several prerogatives to the regulator, setting the capacities to the grid alongside other elements. So this capacity is very important because it gives visibility to investors. This is why we worked with all players on our website. We have a software which allows us to identify the coordinates and the capacity over 5 years. It's very important for investors. So they have the prices, the network code, and the capacity, the harboring capacity. And this allows us to monitor the activity. Okay, this is all fascinating. We can continue discussing this topic. Let's not forget there's a cocktail awaiting us after the meeting. Thank you so much to the participants. Please give them a round of applause. Let's continue with the third panel, third round table on innovation and digitization as catalysts fostering a sustainable and agile ecosystem.
Alors, dans le domaine des énergies renouvelables,
in renewables, innovation is a key factor to tap the whole potential of technologies, and this applies to transmission, production, distribution, and usage of energy. PPPs are key to the success of the energy transition and to create this momentum. It has become necessary to have the commitment of all stakeholders, be they public, private, financial, not to forget the human and societal dimension. To discuss this topic, please welcome Mr. Hicham Feneri, Vice President of Masir. Welcome, Mr. Hicham. Ms. Fatih Abarshi, Director General of Nigerec. I'm not sure she's with us. welcome Mr. Souhaili Mohamed Junaid, Director General of Sonelec from Comoros, and Mr. Jérôme Fourier, Corporate Vice President, Director of Innovation Services and Growth at Nexans. Please join me on the stage. Welcome. Ladies first. We listened to a lot of men. Ms. Abarchi, you're Director General of Nigelec in your institution, power generating institution. What's the role of innovation? Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to take part in this edition. In our country, we haven't yet reached that level of digitization. For 50 years, we were relying on Nigeria for power distribution. And after the 26th July events and the power cuts in Niger, we were put back in previous times. And now we are getting the whole power mechanism under control in Niger. So we are still in the initial stages of this electricity mechanism. And in terms of clean electricity and transition, is it part of your concerns, or do you face an emergency situation and you need to deal with urgent situations? Our priority is to give conventional electricity to all. We carried out PV electrification projects with a 30 megawatt project in Kurubanda. And this allows us to bridge the gap created by the power cuts I mentioned. So we have a problem in terms of storage. There are outages at 9 a.m. and on and off during the day. So we are still dealing with the modernizing of our system. Mr. Junaid, Director General of Sonelec, National Company of Electricity in Comoros. So you're experiencing digitization through modern counting devices. So how did you integrate these aspects in your strategy? First of all, I'd like to thank the ONIE as well as Nexans for giving us this opportunity, this platform for us to discuss the development and the energy transition, which will allow us, as far as we're concerned in the Comoros, to make progress. We have thermal production, which is very costly, so we were compelled to choose renewables because of operating costs. And since we discuss digitization, this is one of the ways we are pursuing to increase our efficiency and to reduce transaction costs. Intelligence devices are at the heart of our strategy. We have a number of counting devices. 64% of them are legacy devices. And now we are generalizing prepayment. So we have around 120,000 subscribers. We're a small country. And we are currently generalizing our park to reach 100%. And the goal is to digitize commercialization. So those are meters that allow us to control our clients' consumption. And the digitalization doesn't stop with meters. There's a whole commercial system which will be 100% digitized. We're currently integrating an ERP which will allow us to be more efficient in our management. And these meters will also help us reduce the power reductions that are very frequent, and this will help us address these gaps. There's also the need for monitoring to ensure sustainability. Yes, this is one of the key points of innovation, making grids more durable. We all know there will not be enough raw materials, not enough copper to renew all low voltage distribution networks. So to increase our electricity production, we need to make our grids more renewable. And therefore, we need to monitor low voltage, and the next stage will be to monitor medium and high voltage in electricity transport to measure power, but to strike a balance between demand and production, and to identify weak spots in order to replace only the amounts of electricity that are necessary. Hicham, the solutions might come from you. Masia is a research lab linked to the UM6P University. How do you contribute from a research standpoint to making electrical systems more sustainable? How do you position Morocco in that research and innovation dimension? Our foundation, the Masir Foundation, is a UM6P foundation. It's dedicated to applied research. It's market-focused on microelectronics, materials, and red and green biotechs. So the energy part, storage, energy generation from solar is being done at Masar, but also at the UM6P University. So you have a whole group of people working together in order to improve and to optimize the energy production systems, especially renewables. When we talk about innovation at the UM6P and Masir, it's not the innovation you witness in corporations in which you have off-the-shelf tools available on the market. We strive to improve the quality of networks, of grids, sorry. And we reflect on the way in which we can render batteries more efficient, how to build multiple junction fuel PV cells to capture a large number of solar array and to avoid power leakage. So it's not just about lithium batteries, it's also about lithium iron phosphate batteries. And as you know, there are currently gigafactories being created in Morocco to benefit from the innovation I just mentioned. And for this, you need training and education. The education part is extremely important because you need to train engineers, experts, technicians who will be able to run those factories. I'd like to have the reaction of Ms. Fatih Abarchi, Director General of Nigelec. What has just been mentioned and what Mr. Feniri said, can this be a source of inspiration and the beginning of new partnership, since we mentioned the solidarity between African countries? Indeed, this is one of the recommendations I wanted to share. In Niger, what we have done, we worked on recovery with transfer companies, meaning that clients can pay their bills with those carrying out money transfer. So we created a direction to help with this. We signed contracts with them, and therefore clients can pay their bills with those partners. With prepaid meters, we are currently acquiring such meters. Unfortunately, we faced political constraints. We had begun to purchase these meters for experimenting. Unfortunately, they are still at the Cotonou port. So those are political hindrances that impede us to carry out all that we wanted to implement.
Now we hope that our partners from Africa will support us in doing so and modernizing this sector. Otherwise, well, we are, of course, capable of emulating our sisterly African countries. Thank you, Sawali Muhammad Junaid. We've talked about these meters and the monitoring as far as the consumption is concerned. Now, on what other aspects this innovation, digitalization are now implemented in the policy led by CERAC? Well, it all depends on the clients, because the payment of electricity is being done in our tellers, and we've already launched an already operational project. We have allowed the payment of the top-up in the palm of the customers, because we are in mobile. We have a mobile app payment system. All of customers can pay electricity on their phones, smartphones. Our strategy is to stop accepting cash payments and do it by either app or card, electronic cards. This will cause some activity to disappear, cert, and our staff whose positions would be destroyed would be redeployed, and also the readers and the staff who would be generally reading the regular meters would be, all of them are going to be redeployed in other services, mostly fighting fraud. For fraud, every time we do innovate, there is always a possibility for malicious persons to circumvent these laws. So we're going to support the anti-fraud approach while supporting our staff and so doing. You've talked about the grid digitalization. This is what we are doing, by the way. Also, since we are starting from scratch, we have a grid that is dated back to the 50s, and we are now revamping, but we are also modernizing it by adding smart distant piloting through SCADA. Okay, yeah. We were talking about innovation for the furtherance of the sustainability of infrastructures. Unfortunately, the net resources are not there to stay forever. They can deplete. So, innovation to better manage consumption and to mostly the second benefit of the grid digitalization is that the network, the future of the grid would be digital. Many African countries are digitalizing their grids, just like the Comoros, Morocco, and also Germany has a low voltage digitalization grid. But the most important thing is reliability. The second element is controlling consumption, because we can only improve only what we can measure, and by measuring in the households, houses and flats, we can have assessments on the month or year basis. So reliability, dispatching, integration of renewable energies, and also we need to act on reduction of consumption. Nexus is 130-year rich in accessories and cables, and we have adapted gateways and sensors and platforms that make it possible to ease this innovation. This reflects the research, Helen Faneri, you were talking about, from the FENELEC through Al-Masir, not FENELEC, Al-Masir, and with the nexus with the Polytechnics Mohammed VI University. Now, this research must be anchored in an educational system of higher education that also puts these questions in the very heart of the curriculum for studies. Yeah. I can talk solely about UM6P. I cannot talk about what is occurring nationally, but I can tell you that UM6P and Masir are motivated by a customer, i.e. the trains we provide are geared to meeting a one specific need, so the motivation is very different from a public university where the trend is to set up through classical STEMs, mathematics, engineering, science, and technology. But at the UM6P, as far as the research projects are concerned, these are and must have a key customer, a key at the end of the whole, a customer to whom such projects are being conducted. So create the subsidiaries, the subsector, in order to meet to that need through innovation. So this kind of obliges us, requires us to remain connected to the needs of the market. And where do you find the training faculty of trainers? In other words, we have a network which is very well. At the international level, I have spent 38 years in the field of R&D in North America and in Europe. Myself, I'm a professor, so being able to come back to Morocco after so many long years and continue the same field, we had to create an environment to just do that. We have been able to create that environment. Quite naturally, had I not done it at the beginning, and had we not optimized the system, we would not be here. And it calls on researchers, innovators, entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurship part in the UM6P is very important. It is as strong as the research. And hence, there is always that state of mind whereby we not only work for a customer, but there is willingness, keenness to really to be an entrepreneur, to be able to use the discoveries and that we have commercial outlets. Thank you, Hisham Faneri, Mrs. Fatih Abarshi, Mr. Suwana Mohammed Junaid, and Mr. Jerome Foni. Madam and everyone, thank you for your testimonials and contributions throughout these three panels. One person has observed all these exchanges and has noted them down from the rear, back of the room. His name is Zakaria Dinia. I think we can put our hands together because we're going to, he is a graphic facilitator, and this is the result of what he was listening at. This is how he made a synthesis of the three panel discussions he's attended to. We find there the Moroccan offering, the sustainability dimension, the South-South cooperation dimension, the importance of, as we have just said, of digitalization and of innovation. Thank you, Mr. Dinia. Zakaria. We're now almost at the end of this fourth issue of Climate Day, and by way of closing this session, we're going to give back the floor to Mr. Christopher Guérin, Nexans CEO.
Merci beaucoup. Merci à tous.
Thank you very much, each and every one, well, for having turned this event a resounding success. Well, we've talked a lot about techniques, technology, solutions. We've talked about the keenness and willingness to do and work. But we have the takeaway message, or the take-home message, is that our generation, all ages combined, we're working for our children. We are working for a walks or chapter of humanity that would have to continue leading us into the right direction between sustainable development. We need convergence, and this is what we want to showcase today, the convergence of experts, of manufacturers, of the private and the public, of the government. We need to also showcase that ambition that everyone should work to implement. And also economy must also be associated. It is the investment, it is the progress of a country through the economy, but economy that should not be against the development. Nexans, of course, is keen on encouraging, exalting companies, territories, ecosystem to work towards that objective. Thank you. And at Nexans, we are used to, when addressing the closing word, we announce the name of the country who would host the next Climate Day. Well, I'm the only one who knows, and I would therefore say to our team from Canada, telling them that it will be held. The next Climate Day will be held in Toronto, Canada. Thank you, and each and everyone. The dinner cocktail is awaiting you, and we're going to be having tea and more to drink. Thank you. In this majestic place. Thank you. Exceptional work to Adia, to all the organizing team, the light, the team, and thank you for Mr. Christophe Guérin. Thank you, CEO next year in Toronto, Canada. Thank you, each and every one, for your attention. Now, you can continue exchanging, networking outside during the cocktail. Thank you for all the teams who prepared, led works. Thank you.